Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
15 years ago, Talis 4, village of Marina. The explosion tore through the village square, and John felt his ribs shatter. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Blood filled his mouth, hot and copper tasting. His vision tunneled to a pinpoint of fading light. This is it, some distant part of his mind registered. Fatal chest trauma, internal bleeding. 30 seconds, maybe less. Through the smoke and screaming, a figure crawled toward him. A Talesian man, blue skin, violet-eyed, his armor cracked and leaking. He was dragging something behind him, a sword. The man's chest was torn open. No one survived wounds like that, but his eyes were clear, focused as he reached John. "Soldier?" the man rasped, his voice wet with blood. "Listen." John tried to speak. Only bubbles came out. The Talesian pressed the sword's hilt into John's hand, forcing his fingers to close around it. The blade felt ancient, impossibly heavy. "My name is Darren," the man said, each word costing him. "This blade has been in my family for 6 generations. It has one rule." He coughed blood. "One curse." The sword began to hum. "The sword will save you from any death," the dying warrior rasped, his violet eyes boring into John's. "Its price is the life you cherish." Light exploded from the blade. John screamed as his shattered ribs knitted together, as his punctured lungs sealed, as impossible energy flooded through his dying body and dragged him back from the edge. The pain was transcendent, cleansing, wrong. And across the square, a woman stood frozen in the open, beautiful and terrified, her blue skin pale in the firelight. She was looking directly at Darren, her mouth forming his name. The plasma bolt caught her in the chest. She dropped without a sound. "Mira!" Darren's voice broke on the name. He tried to crawl toward her, but his strength was gone. "No, no, not her, not—" John's vision cleared completely. His breathing steadied. He was whole, alive. Darren's hand fell from the sword, lifeless. The woman, Mira, lay 50 feet away, smoke rising from the wound that had killed her instantly. The sword's light faded to nothing, leaving only dark metal in John's grip. He didn't understand what had just happened. Didn't understand the exchange that had been made. He only knew that he was alive, and 2 people were dead, and the sword in his hand felt like it was whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Behind him, his squad was calling his name. The mission continued. The operation would be classified, the civilian casualties deemed acceptable, and John would spend the next 15 years trying to forget the violet eyes of a dying man who'd saved his life at a cost he couldn't comprehend. Until now. Present day. Outpost 9. The bar on Outpost 9 shook when the raiders kicked the doors in. Drunken miners scattered. Glass shattered. Behind the counter, Elia, the quiet blue-skinned bartender, froze as a raider grabbed her by the arm. That's when the bouncer moved. He didn't think. He reacted. A flash of instinct, a buried reflex. He caught the raider's wrist mid-strike and slammed him into a table with bone-breaking precision. Everyone stared. "Who the hell are you?" the raider hissed, crawling back. The bouncer didn't know. He never knew. Everyone here called him John, the nameless man who washed up 2 years ago with nothing but scars and nightmares. Then John saw it. On the wall behind Elia hung an old ceremonial sword, her family relic. He grabbed it, and the blade lit up, humming like it recognized him. Elia stared at the glowing blade. "My family's sword is dead metal. It shouldn't react to anyone." John parried a blow he didn't see coming. His hands moved like a trained killer's. Too fluid, too perfect. Elia whispered, trembling, "Who? Are you John?" He shook his head, breathless. "I wish I knew." He saved her life, but she stepped away from him, afraid. The raiders scrambled to their feet and fled into the darkness outside. Their footsteps faded quickly. John stood in the center of the ruined bar, breathing hard, the glowing sword still humming in his hand. The light was already fading, dimming back to inert metal. Within seconds, it looked like an ordinary blade again. The miners stared at him with wide eyes. Someone whispered, "What the fuck was that?" John turned slowly to face Aaliyah. She stood behind the counter, her hands pressed flat against the wood, her eyes locked on the sword. "My family's blade," she said, her voice shaking. "It's been dead metal for 15 years, since my father died. It shouldn't react to anyone. Not anymore. Not ever. John looked down at the weapon. His hand was still wrapped around the hilt. I didn't know it would. Give it to me. He held it out. Ilya took it with trembling fingers, and the moment the grip left his hand, something in his chest twisted. A sense of loss so sudden and profound, it took his breath away. Ilya held the sword at arm's length, as if afraid it might bite her. Nothing happened. The metal stayed cold and dark. Tell me the truth, she said, her violet eyes fixed on his face. Who are you, John? I don't know. You're lying. I'm not. He spread his hands helplessly. 2 years ago, I woke up in the medical bay with no memory. They said someone found me half dead in the scrap yards outside the station. No ID, no ship, no records. Just scars and nightmares I can't remember when I wake up. And you can fight like that? I didn't know I could fight like that. One of the miners stood up shakily. I'm getting security. No, Ilya said sharply. Leave it. They won't come anyway. The man hesitated, then nodded and hurried out with the others. Within minutes, the bar was empty, except for John and Ilya and the wreckage. She set the sword on the counter between them. In the dim light, it looked ancient and unremarkable. John stared at the blade, and something flickered at the edge of his memory. A village, smoke, a dying man pressing cold metal into his hands. The sword will save you from any death. The fragment vanished before he could grasp it. In my culture, Ilya said slowly, a blade that awakens in foreign hands is an omen. It means the blade recognizes something. A bloodline, a debt, a truth. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. Or a curse. I've never seen that sword before tonight, but it's seen you. She wrapped her arms around herself. There's an old story about this blade. My father told it to me when I was young. He said his grandfather died holding it, whispering a warning. Her eyes were distant now, haunted. The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish. John felt ice spreading through his chest. What does that mean? I don't know, it's just a story. But her voice shook. My father said the blade was forged for guardians, but every guardian who wielded it lost someone they loved. The blade would save them from death, but someone else would pay the price. She looked at the dark metal. My mother died in Marina. My father died 3 days later. The sword went dark the moment we received the news about her. Ilya, it's probably just coincidence, superstition. She wouldn't meet his eyes. But the blade lit up for you tonight, and I need you to understand. If that story is true, if there's even a chance it's true, her voice cracked. Stay away from me, John, because I can't be the price for whatever that sword wants. The words hit him like a physical blow. Ilya, please, her voice cracked. I need to think. I just need you to go. John looked at her for a long moment. The fear in her eyes was real. The confusion, the wariness. She'd always been kind to him. The only person on this rust bucket station who treated him like more than a ghost with a face, and now she was afraid of him. He turned and walked toward the door, his boots crunching on broken glass. John! He stopped, not turning around. Lock your door tonight, she said quietly. If they come back, they won't come for me. Cold understanding settled in his stomach. The raiders hadn't recognized him, but someone somewhere might. He stepped out into the night without answering. Outpost 9 clung to the side of an asteroid like a tumor, all corrugated metal and leaking atmosphere. The streets, if you could call them that, were narrow passages between prefab structures, lit by failing sodium lamps that turned everything the color of old blood. John walked without direction, his mind churning. His hands still tingled where he'd held the sword. That feeling of rightness, of completion, it terrified him more than the fight itself. He found himself at the edge of the station, where the pressurized dome gave way to reinforced viewports looking out at the void. Dozens of other asteroids tumbled through the darkness beyond, their surfaces pocked with mining operations and dim lights. Rough night? John turned. A man in a maintenance jumpsuit leaned against the wall nearby, smoking something that glowed faintly blue at the tip. Something like that, John said. Heard there was trouble at Ilya's place. The man took a drag, the ember lighting his weathered face. Heard you handled it. News travels. Always does. The man studied him. 2 years ago when you showed up, people had bets going. Some said you were a smuggler. Others said military deserter. A few thought maybe you were running from a bad marriage. What did you think? I thought you were someone smart enough to know when to shut up and keep your head down. He flicked ash onto the floor. Most people who come here got a past they don't want found. Long as you don't cause trouble, nobody cares. And if I did cause trouble, the man smiled without humor, then you better hope your past doesn't catch up before you remember who you were. He pushed off the wall and walked away, leaving John alone with the void. John's quarters were a 6x8 box with a cot, a locker, and a sink that worked half the time. He lay on the cot fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the sword igniting in his hands, felt that surge of perfect certainty. His body had known exactly what to do, and that knowledge had come from somewhere, someone. He forced himself to focus on the few fragments he could remember from before. The nightmares, quick flashes, a burning building, screaming, so much screaming, smoke that tasted like chemicals, his hands wet with something dark, and always at the edge of it, a feeling of crushing guilt so intense it woke him gasping. He sat up, running his hands through his hair. The scars on his arms itched, dozens of them, thin and precise, like he'd been cut by someone who knew exactly where to hurt without killing. The medical staff had said they were old, years healed before he'd even arrived on the station. What kind of life left a man with scars like that? A knock on the door made him jump. He opened it to find Elia standing in the hallway, still wearing her work clothes. Her eyes were red. "Can I come in?" He stepped aside wordlessly. She entered and stood in the center of the cramped space, hugging herself. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "Then why are you?" "Because I'm a coward." She laughed bitterly. "Because I spent 3 hours sitting in my apartment trying to convince myself you're dangerous, and I couldn't. Because you jumped in front of a plasma bolt for me, and I repaid you by kicking you out. You had every right to be scared. I'm still scared." She met his eyes. "But I'm also alone on a station full of vultures, and the only person who's ever protected me without asking for something in return is a man who doesn't even know his own name." John didn't know what to say, didn't trust his voice. Elia moved to sit on the edge of his cot. "My father used to say the blade was forged for guardians, people who put others before themselves. It would only awaken for someone with that nature." She looked up at him. "Maybe it recognized that in you. Maybe that's all it was." "You don't believe that?" "No." Her voice was barely audible. "But I want to." He sat down beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Tell me about your family." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was distant. "My people are from Talos 4, Ocean World. We were merchants. My father ran a small trading business. Nothing fancy, but we were happy." She paused. 15 years ago, there was a rebellion. Separatists wanted independence from Earth's colonial authority. It got ugly fast. John felt something cold forming in his chest. What happened? Earth sent soldiers, special forces. They were supposed to neutralize the rebel leaders, but... She trailed off, her hands clenching. "There was a village, Marina. The soldiers thought rebels were hiding there. They weren't. Just families. Civilians. A flash. Smoke. Screaming. A man's violet eyes." John's hands started to shake. "My mother was visiting relatives there," Elia continued, her voice distant. "My father, Darren, went to find her, to protect her. He carried the family blade with him. He always said it would keep him safe." Her voice cracked. "I waited at home. I was 13. Darren. The name hit John like a physical blow. He saw it clearly now. The dying man in the village square, pressing the sword into his hands, whispering about prices and cherished lives. "There was an attack," Elia said. "An explosion. My father was caught in it. He..." She stopped, wiping her eyes. "They told me he tried to save someone. A soldier, they thought. But in that same moment, my mother was killed, hit by weapons fire. The timing was exact. He died saving someone, and she died." She looked at John with wet eyes. "The sword stopped glowing the day we got the news. My father had always said the blade demanded balance, a life for a life. I thought it was just a story." John couldn't breathe. He remembered it now. Remembered Darren dying. Remembered the woman across the square. Remembered the impossible exchange. The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish. I left Talus 4 as soon as I could, Elia continued. Came out here to forget. To start over where nobody knew my name or my story. She looked at him with wet eyes. Just like you. He reached out slowly and took her hand. She let him. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For things I don't remember. For crimes I might have committed. For being the kind of monster you ran from. That you had to live through that. She squeezed his fingers. They sat in silence. Two people shaped by violence they couldn't escape, finding brief comfort in shared darkness. Show me, she said suddenly. Show you what? How to fight. I'm tired of being helpless. If those raiders come back, or if others do, I want to be able to defend myself. I don't know how I fight, it just happens. Then teach me what happens. Her eyes were fierce now. Please, John, I need this. He nodded slowly. Tomorrow. The cargo bay levels. There's empty space down there. Thank you. She stood but didn't let go of his hand immediately. Can I ask you something? Anything. When you held the sword, what did it feel like? John thought back to that moment. The way the blade had seemed to sing in his grip. The absolute certainty that had flooded through him. Like coming home, he admitted. Like remembering something I'd forgotten. And it terrified me. Elias squeezed his hand once more, then let go. That terrifies me too. But maybe we both need to be scared of the right things. She left and John sat alone in the darkness, wondering what the right things were. The cargo bay on level 3 was a vast, echoing space filled with shipping containers and broken machinery. John and Aaliyah met there the next evening after her shift ended. She'd changed into practical clothes, dark pants and a fitted shirt, and carried the sword wrapped in cloth. My father's blade, she said, setting it on a container. I haven't touched it in years. You don't have to use it for this. We can start with hand-to-hand. No, her voice was firm. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it properly. She unwrapped the sword. In the harsh industrial lighting, it looked even more ancient. The metal dark and pitted, the wrapped hilt fraying. John reached for it hesitantly. The moment his fingers touched the grip, warmth flooded through him. The blade didn't ignite this time, but he felt it. A subtle vibration, a sense of potential waiting just beneath the surface. It knows you, Elia whispered. John forced himself to focus. Okay, first your stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent. You want to be able to move in any direction. He moved behind her, adjusting her posture with gentle touches. She was tense, her shoulders rigid. Relax. If you're tight, you can't react fast enough. Easy for you to say. You move like water. I move like someone who trained until it became reflex. He paused. Apparently. She glanced back at him with a slight smile. That's the first joke I've heard you make. Wasn't a joke. I know. That's what made it funny. They worked for an hour. Basic strikes, defense positions, how to read an opponent's movements. John's body remembered things his mind didn't. Footwork, timing, the geometry of combat. He demonstrated slowly, breaking down each movement, and Aaliyah followed with surprising quickness. You're a natural, he said. My father taught me the forms when I was little. Before, she trailed off, then reset her stance. Again. They continued until sweat gleamed on her skin, and her arms shook from exertion. Finally, she lowered the blade, breathing hard. Enough for today, John nodded. As Aaliyah set the sword down and reached for a water bottle, he found himself watching her, the way lamplight caught the blue tones of her skin, the determined set of her jaw, the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. What? She asked, catching his look. You're stronger than you think. That's what people say when they mean you're weak but trying. No, it's what people say when they recognize real courage. She studied him for a moment, something shifting in her expression. Then she stepped closer, close enough that he could see the darker flecks in her violet eyes. John, I need to tell you something. His pulse quickened. Okay. I was lying earlier about why I came to your quarters. I don't understand. I didn't come because I was grateful or because I needed protection. She took a breath. I came because for 2 years, you've been the one person on this station who treats me like I matter, who doesn't look at me like I'm just another refugee who should be grateful for scraps. You see me, John, the real me. He didn't know what to say, didn't trust his voice. And I think, she continued quietly, somewhere along the way, I started to care about you. More than I should. Ilya, I know it's insane. You don't even know who you are. But whoever you were before, the man standing in front of me right now is someone I trust. Someone I... The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the cargo bay. John's hand shot out instinctively, finding Elia's arm. Stay close, he whispered. What's happening? Before he could answer, emergency lighting flickered on. Dim red panels that turned everything the color of blood. And in that crimson glow, John saw figures moving between the containers. 6, maybe 7, spreading out to surround them. Well, well, a voice echoed through the space. The ghost finally shows his face. A man stepped into view, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing armor that looked military-grade. His face was deeply scarred, one eye replaced with a glowing, cybernetic implant. And in his hand, he held a weapon that made John's blood run cold. A pulse rifle with markings he somehow recognized. Earth Defense Force. Special Operations. You know, the scarred man continued, his voice thick with hatred. I spent 15 years looking for you. 15 years tracking down everyone involved in Seraph 7. Most of them were smart. They ran, changed their names, buried themselves deep. John's mouth had gone dry. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. The man's cybernetic eye flared brighter. You think you can hide behind amnesia? I've seen your work. That precision. That instinct. You can't fake that. Elia's fingers tightened on John's arm. What is Seraph 7? An elite unit, the scarred man spat. Earth's best killers. They went into contested zones and eliminated problems. Rebels, civilians, anyone who stood in the way. He took a step closer. And this man, your friend, your protector, he was the best of them all. No, John said, but the word felt hollow. Fragments were surfacing now, unbidden. Mission briefings, target profiles, the weight of a rifle in his hands. My name is Kyle, the scarred man said, and 15 years ago in a village called Marina, you and your squad murdered innocent people. My son was 17, visiting his grandmother. His cybernetic eye flared brighter. But you already know about Marina, don't you, Ghost? You were there when the village burned. John's legs went weak. He turned to look at Aaliyah and saw horror dawning in her eyes. That's not possible, she whispered. Tell me that's not possible. I don't remember, John said desperately. But even as he spoke, fragments were surfacing. The explosion, the dying man, the sword. The sword will save you from any death. Then let me help you remember. Kyle raised his rifle. Seraph 7 was sent to Marina based on bad intelligence. You had orders. Eliminate all hostiles. No survivors. And you followed those orders perfectly. Images crashed through John's mind like breaking glass. The village. The dawn raid. And then, the explosion that should have killed him. Darren, violet eyes, blue skin. The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish. The light, the healing. And across the square, Mira, falling, dead. My son wasn't the only one who died that day, Cale said, his voice breaking. But he's the one I held in my arms. The one whose eyes I closed. John clutched his head as the full memory tore through him. He'd been saved by Ilya's father's sword, and the price the blade demanded, the life Darren cherished, had been Elia's mother. He looked at Elia, and the truth was written across his face. The sword, Elia whispered, backing away from him. You were the soldier my father saved, the one he gave the blade to. I didn't know, John gasped. I swear I didn't know. He died saving you. Her voice broke. And my mother, the price. She couldn't finish. Tears streamed down her face as the full horror of it became clear. The blade took her. To save you. The life he cherished most. Elia, please. How touching, Kyle said coldly. The ghost and the orphan he created. There's poetry in that. John could barely stand. 15 years of buried memories flooded back in agonizing detail. He remembered his father now, a weapons engineer for Earth defense. Remembered his mother, a combat instructor. They'd shaped him from birth to be a soldier. He remembered his training, years of it, hand-to-hand combat, weapons proficiency, infiltration techniques, psychological conditioning to suppress empathy during operations. He remembered his first kill, 13 years old, a training exercise that turned real. He remembered joining Seraph 7 at 18, the youngest operative ever selected, and he remembered Marina, the mission brief, rebel commanders using the village. Rules of engagement, eliminate all hostiles. They swept through at dawn. Anyone who ran was shot. The boy with the prayer book, reflexes, not thinking. Center mass. Then the explosion. Shrapnel through his chest. Dying. Darren crawling toward him with the sword. The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish. The light. The healing. Mira falling across the square. The exact moment the sword saved John's life. Later, intelligence was wrong. No commanders, just civilians. The memory sat in his mind now, crystal clear and emotionally inert. Elia was backing away from John, her face a mask of betrayal and horror. My father gave his life to save you. And you didn't even remember. You couldn't even... I didn't know it was your family, John said desperately. The sword, it healed me and I forgot. The trauma, the memory loss. Does it matter? Tears streamed down her face. They're dead. My mother, my father, gone because a cursed blade chose you. Kyle's rifle shifted, aiming at Aaliyah. But here's the thing, Ghost. I don't just want you to remember. I want you to feel what I felt, what Darren felt, to lose what they lost. His finger moved to the trigger. The sword saved you once by taking someone's cherished life. Let's see what it takes this time. No! John lunged forward, but Kyle's men were faster. Two of them grabbed him, slamming him against a container. You don't deserve to forget, Kyle said. You don't deserve peace. You don't deserve love. And you sure as hell don't deserve her? He fired, not once, but twice. The first bolt screamed toward John, the second toward Elia. John tore free with a roar of pure animal desperation. He threw himself between them, but the bolts were already in motion, plasma burning through the air. The first one caught him square in the chest, exactly where the shrapnel had torn through him 15 years ago. The second streaked past him toward Aaliyah. Time seemed to slow. The sword, lying on the container where she'd set it, blazed to life. Light erupted from the blade, so bright it turned the cargo bay into noon. The sword lifted into the air on its own, spinning once, twice, and then shot down like a meteor. The blade drove into John's chest where the bolt had struck. He screamed. The light intensified, flooding through him, burning away the pain. He felt his flesh knitting, his shattered sternum reforming, his scorched organs healing with impossible speed. The sword was saving him, again, and he knew, with absolute horrifying certainty, what the price would be. Ilya, he screamed, trying to reach her through the blinding light. The second plasma bolt hit her in the chest. She staggered backward, her violet eyes wide with shock. Her hand came up to the wound, and John watched the light die in her gaze. No, he whispered. No, not her. Take me instead. Take me. But the sword had made its choice. Elia collapsed, and John felt the healing complete. His chest was whole, his body perfect, alive. The light faded. He stood in the center of the cargo bay, breathing steadily, his heart beating strong. Elia lay on the floor 10 feet away, smoke rising from the wound that had killed her instantly. Just like Mira, just like her mother, the exact same death. The sword will save you from any death, Darren had whispered 15 years ago. Its price is the life you cherish. John fell to his knees beside her, pulling her into his arms. Her skin was still warm. Her eyes were still open, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Elia, please. But she was gone. The sword had saved him from death and taken the only life he'd ever cherished. Kyle stared, his rifle lowering slowly. What just happened? John looked down at Elia's face, at the woman who'd shown him kindness, who'd taught him to hope, who'd made him want to be better than the monster he'd been. And he felt it happening inside him. The second price the sword was taking. Not his life, not his body, but everything that made him capable of mourning her. His capacity for grief, for guilt, for love. The sword drained it all away, leaving only cold clarity. He laid Elia's body gently on the floor and stood. When he looked at Kyle, his eyes were empty. "The blade saved me," John said, his voice flat and emotionless. "It took her. Just like it took her mother 15 years ago. The price is always the same." He picked up the sword from where it had fallen, "and it gave me something in return." "What did it give you?" Kyle asked, his voice uncertain. John looked at him with dead eyes. "Nothing." He glanced down at Elia's body one more time. The memory of loving her was there, filed away like mission data, accessible but weightless. "The sword took her to save me, just like it took her mother 15 years ago. And then it took what would let me mourn either of them." He moved, not with thought, not with anger or grief or rage, with perfect, terrible efficiency. He closed the distance to the nearest guard in 2 steps. The sword flashed, a precise strike that shattered the man's rifle and sent him stumbling backward. The second guard tried to fire. John's blade deflected the shot and struck the man's helmet with the flat edge, dropping him. Kyle's men scattered, firing wildly. John moved through the plasma bolts like a dancer, the sword singing as it carved precise arcs through the air. He wasn't fighting. He was executing a pattern, beautiful, deadly, and completely devoid of mercy or hesitation. "Stop!" Kyle screamed. "Stop!" John turned to face him. The scarred man was backing toward the exit, his rifle shaking in his hands. "You wanted me to remember," John said calmly. "You wanted me to suffer, but the sword has its own plans. It saved me twice. First, it took Mira, Elia's mother, Darren's cherished life. Now it took Elia, my cherished life. And in payment for survival, it took my ability to care about any of it." Kyle fired. John didn't bother to dodge. The bolt hit the sword and scattered harmlessly. "I remember everything now," John continued, still advancing. "Every kill, every mission, every face. Darren's eyes as he died saving me. Mira falling across the square. And Elia," he glanced back at her body. "I remember loving her, but I don't feel it. I don't feel anything." "You're insane. I'm what the sword made me, twice over." John raised the blade. "You have 10 seconds to leave. If you're still here after that, I'll kill you. Not because I hate you, not because you took her from me, but because you're a tactical problem, and I solve problems." The sword made sure of that. Cal stared at him, and whatever he saw in John's eyes made his face go pale. He backed toward the exit, his men scrambling after him. "This isn't over," Cal said. "Yes," John replied, looking back at Elia's body. "It is. Everything's over." They fled. The sound of their footsteps faded into the distance. John stood alone in the cargo bay. The sword's light had dimmed to nothing, just dark metal again. He knelt beside Elia's body. Her violet eyes, so much like her father's, stared at nothing. In death, she looked peaceful, young, innocent. He'd loved this woman. The memory was clear. The emotion was gone. "The sword will save you from any death," he whispered, echoing words spoken 15 years ago by a dying man. "Its price is the life you cherish." Darren had known, had warned him. And John had forgotten, had buried the memory so deep that even amnesia couldn't account for it. The mind protecting itself from unbearable truth. But now he remembered everything, and felt nothing. He stood, still holding the blade. It pulsed faintly, as if satisfied. Fed. John looked around the cargo bay. He could call station security, report what happened, try to explain, or he could disappear. Take himself and the cursed blade as far from civilization as possible. Make sure it never took another cherished life. The choice required no emotion, just logic. He was too dangerous to exist among people. The sword had proven that twice. Anyone he ever cared about would become its price. He wrapped the blade carefully and left the cargo bay, stepping over unconscious guards. Behind him, Elia's body lay in the red emergency lighting. He didn't look back. Couldn't afford to. The sword had saved him from death and destroyed everything worth living for. All that remained was to make sure it never happened again. The station's security office was a cramped space near the main docks. A board officer barely glanced up when John entered. "Cargo Bay 3, armed assault, 1 civilian casualty. The attackers fled." The officer's eyes sharpened. "Casualty? Who?" "Elia, the bartender. Plasma fire." The man stood quickly. And you... Check the footage. It shows everything. John turned to leave. The weapon was mine. I'm removing it from the station. Wait, I need... Document it. Self-defense. He left. Behind him, alarms would sound. Questions would be asked. Somewhere behind him, Elia was still dying on a loop in every camera that recorded Cargo Bay 3. He'd be gone. The docks buzzed with shift change. John moved through the crowds like smoke. He found a bulk freighter preparing to depart, the kind that didn't ask questions if you could pay. The captain was a grizzled woman with cybernetic arms and a face carved by hard years. Passage, John said. Anywhere but here. She studied the wrapped sword at his hip. 200 credits. 20 minutes. John transferred the funds. Everything he'd saved. It didn't matter now. Got a name? She asked. No. She raised an eyebrow. Cargo holds full. Passenger pod. Might get cold. That's fine. Welcome aboard then. She gestured to the ramp. John walked up without looking back. The passenger pod was exactly as advertised. A cramped cylinder with a crash seat and basic life support. John strapped himself in as the ship's engines rumbled to life. The vibration traveled through the hull, through his seat, through his bones. As the freighter detached from the station and started accelerating, John unwrapped the sword and laid it across his knees. In the pod's dim lighting, the blade looked almost black. He angled the sword toward the pod's floor and drove the tip down with all his weight. The metal screamed. The plating dented. The blade didn't even scratch. He tried again. Different angle. Same result. Of course. A weapon that eats love wouldn't be that easy to kill. He remembered his father now. A weapons engineer for Earth defense. Remembered his mother, a combat instructor. They'd shaped him from birth to be a soldier. He remembered his first kill. 13 years old. A training exercise that turned real. He remembered joining Seraph 7 at 18, the youngest operative ever selected. And he remembered Marina, the mission brief. Rebel commanders using the village. Rules of engagement, eliminate all hostiles. They swept through at dawn. Anyone who ran was shot. The boy with the prayer book, reflexes, not thinking. Center mass. Then the explosion. Shrapnel through his chest, dying. Darren crawling toward him with the sword. The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish. The light, the healing. Mira falling across the square. The exact moment the sword saved John's life. Later, intelligence was wrong. No commanders, just civilians. The memory sat in his mind now, crystal clear and emotionally inert. The sword hummed faintly in his hands as if sensing his thoughts. He picked it up, studying the ancient blade. He wondered with detached curiosity what would happen to him now. Flash, dawn raid, buildings, smoke. Flash, boy with prayer book, center mass, the object falling. Flash, Darren's violet eyes. The price is the life you cherish. Flash, Mira falling, perfect synchronization, life for life. John reconstructed his service history with methodical precision. The operations, the kills, all of it filed away like mission data. The freighter's engines hummed. The countdown to Meridian, and whatever waited there, bled down the screen. 72 hours, 48 hours, 24 hours. The sword rested beside him. Sometimes he felt it in his mind. Satisfaction, completion. It had fed on 2 cherished lives across 15 years. Darren had cherished Mira. The sword took her. John had cherished Elia. The sword took her. Both times it left the Guardian alive, stripped of the capacity to mourn. Elegant, cruel, perfect. On the 3rd day, Captain Vasquez's voice returned over the intercom. We're approaching Meridian Station. Colonial Security confirmed they'll be boarding. You've got about 40 minutes. Understood. A pause. I looked into your service record. Seraph 7. That unit did ugly work. Another pause. A lot of soldiers followed bad orders. Doesn't make you unique. Your point? You've got choices. Face trial. Fight your way out, or... She hesitated. There's a medical pod in the cargo bay. Cryo capability. I could tell security we had a medical emergency. By the time they figure out I'm lying, I'll be 3 sectors away. John processed the offer. Why? Because my sister was colonial security. She followed bad orders too. It broke her. Vasquez's voice softened. Maybe you deserve prison, maybe worse, but you should get to choose. The intercom clicked off. John sat in the darkness, considering his options. The sword lay beside him, wrapped in cloth. He could face trial, accept punishment for Marina and everything that followed. But the sword would remain, would find another wielder eventually, would take more cherished lives, or he could disappear. Take the blade somewhere it could never hurt anyone again. The choice carried no emotional weight, just cold calculation of probable outcomes. He picked up the sword. It pulsed faintly in his hands, satisfied and sated. It had fed twice on cherished lives. Mira, Elia. Both women connected to Darren. Both prices paid for John's survival. The blade was content now, dormant, but not forever. John understood what he had to do. The cargo bay was massive, stacked with shipping containers and industrial equipment. Captain Vasquez waited near an open medical pod, a coffin-sized cylinder lined with cryo equipment. She didn't flinch when she saw the sword. You made your choice? I need to ask you something first, John said. Outpost 9. There was a woman there named Elia. She worked at a bar. She's dead now. Killed because of me, because of this sword. Vasquez studied him. I'm sorry. Don't be. I can't feel it. The words came out flat, honest. But before she died, she mattered to me. The sword took her as payment for saving my life. It's taken before. It will take again if I let it near anyone else. What are you asking me? Put me under, for as long as possible. Take me somewhere the sword can't hurt anyone. Somewhere no one will ever find it. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. That's not living. I know, but at least it's not killing. John looked down at the wrapped blade. This sword has a curse. It saves its wielder from death by taking the life they cherish most. It's done it twice to me now. I won't let there be a third time. Then destroy it. I've tried. He had. During the flight, he'd attempted to break the blade, melt it, anything. The metal was indestructible. The only solution is to remove it, and me, from the equation. Permanently. Vasquez nodded slowly. 10 years in cryo. You'll wake up in a place where no one knows your name or your past. What you do with the sword after that is your choice. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm just postponing the inevitable. She gestured to the pod. Get in. John climbed into the pod, the sword still in his hand. The interior was cold, sterile. Vasquez began entering commands on the control panel. One thing I'm curious about, she said as she worked. If the sword takes what you cherish most, why are you still holding it? Why not throw it into the void? Because it's already taken everything. There's nothing left for it to feed on. John looked at the blade. And because someone needs to keep it contained, make sure it never finds another wielder. You're volunteering to be its prison. I'm the only one qualified. I've already paid its price twice, he paused. Mira, Elia, both died so I could live. I owe them this much. Vasquez's hands paused on the controls. You remember their names? I remember everything. I just can't feel it. John met her eyes. The sword made sure of that. It takes your cherished life and then takes your ability to mourn. Efficient design. Vasquez finished her commands, her expression troubled. Sleep well, Ghost, or don't. I'm not sure which you'd prefer. The pod's lid began to lower. John watched the cargo bay disappear as the seal closed, leaving him in darkness. Then came the cold, a spreading numbness that started in his extremities and crept inward. His last conscious thought was of Elia's face as she died. Not the memory of loving her, but the memory of the memory. A copy of an emotion he'd once felt. The sword pulsed against his chest, content and sated. And then, nothing. Meridian Station. 3 days later, Colonial Security Officer Marcus Reeves reviewed the incident reports from Outpost 9. A bartender named Elia had been killed in Cargo Bay 3. Armed men. Plasma fire. A man with a sword who'd tried to protect her. The security footage showed the impossible. Plasma bolt, chest hit, sword igniting, healing. The woman taking a second bolt. She died instantly. He held her body for 3 minutes, then left. Surveillance tracked him to a freighter. Captain Vasquez's vessel. By the time Reeves's people reached the ship, it had docked and undocked. Medical emergency, passenger and cryo, all proper paperwork. But the footage showed the man whole when he boarded, functional, carrying something wrapped in cloth, sword-shaped. Reeves filed his report. Subject, John Doe, identity unknown, wanted for questioning in death of Elia Tarrant, possibly former military, Seraph 7 based on movement patterns. Armed with artifact of unknown origin, advise extreme caution. He closed the file. If the man surfaced again, they'd find him. But Reeves suspected whoever John Doe had been, he was already lost in the ways that mattered. Outpost 9, 1 week later. The bar stood empty, closed indefinitely by station authority. Yellow tape marked it as a crime scene. Inside, someone had placed flowers near where Elia used to stand behind the counter. Blue flowers from Talus 4. Someone who'd known her. Someone who'd cared. The miners who'd been regulars spoke of her kindly. The quiet bartender who'd listened to their problems. Who'd never turned anyone away who needed help. A memorial fund was established. Credits donated to help other refugees like her. People displaced by wars they didn't start. Trying to build new lives in harsh places. It wasn't much. It wasn't enough. But it was something. And in the back room of the bar, hidden in a locked storage locker, investigators found something curious. A journal. Elia's handwriting. Entries spanning 2 years. Most of it was mundane. Inventory notes, customer complaints, daily observations. But the last entry, written the night before she died, said something that made the investigators pause. John asked me why I keep the sword on the wall, if it's just a painful reminder. I told him it's there to remember the price of protection. My father gave everything to save someone. Even knowing the cost, he made that choice. I think John would understand that better than anyone. He spent 2 years trying to protect people, despite having no memory of who he is. Maybe the blade recognized that in him. Maybe that's why it lit up. Or maybe it's just me hoping there's still good in the world, even in cursed things. The investigators filed the journal as evidence. No one quite understood what it meant. But Elia's words remained, preserved in ink, a testament to a hope that outlasted her. Somewhere in the fringe. 10 years later. The medical pod's alarm began its wake cycle. Warming protocols activated. Neural stimulation commenced. Muscle tone restoration initiated. John's eyes opened. For a moment he didn't know where he was. Didn't know when he was. The cryo fog made everything distant and unreal. Then memory flooded back, not in fragments this time, but in complete clarity. Every mission, every kill. Marina, Elia, the sword, the price. He felt nothing about any of it. The pod opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. John sat up slowly, his body stiff from a decade of suspension. The room around him was small, basic. A storage facility of some kind. A datapad lay on a nearby shelf, blinking with a message notification. He picked it up. Ghost, this is Vasquez. You woke up. Station Tartarus. Deep fringe. No authority. Credit account linked. 10,000. The bounty I didn't collect. Your friend, Elia. The cargo bay incident killed her. Station held a memorial. Someone established a fund in her name. Helping refugees. The sword isn't in any official reports. My advice, you're carrying a weapon that feeds on love. Don't let it near anyone who matters. Don't give it another chance. Whatever you become, make sure that blade never bonds with another wielder. You're a prison for something that should never be free. Keep it locked away. Keep yourself locked away. That's the only way to honor the lives it's taken. Vasquez. John set down the pad. He looked at his hands. The same hands that had held Darren's sword as he died. The same hands that had held Elia as she died. The sword lay wrapped beside him. Dark, dormant, satisfied. It had fed twice. Mira and Elia, mother and daughter. Both killed by the same curse 15 years apart, to save the same man. John picked up the blade and held it. Cold, inert, no light, no hum. You won't take another, he said to it. He stood. Legs held. Station Tartarus stretched outside, a lawless place where people came to disappear. Perfect. He found a small room in the station's depths, paid for a year in advance, locked the door, and sat in the darkness with the sword across his knees. standing guard over a curse that had already taken everything worth protecting. The memory of Darren's last words echoed, "The sword will save you from any death. Its price is the life you cherish." Saved twice. 2 cherished lives taken. He wouldn't let there be a third. Even if it meant spending eternity as a hollow guardian, watching over a blade that had consumed everything that made life worth living. John closed his eyes, not to sleep, not to rest, but to begin his vigil. Outside, the station hummed with desperate lives and dirty commerce. Inside, silence. A man, a sword, a prison, nothing more. The sword saved him from every death, and the price was every life he ever cherished.